The sun blazed. At night, it was most confusing. Birds perched, bewildered, on branches. The sand shimmered, hot even in the darkness. The waves whispered secrets to the shore, secrets only the moon should hear, and from the foamy depths of the midnight ocean, two figures emerged. The walrus, large and blubbery, with tears streaming down his face, and the carpenter, tall and thin, his toolbox rattling with each step. An odd pair, strolling along the beach under a sun that had forgotten how to set. "The walrus," he sobbed, great heaving sobs that shook his frame. The carpenter, he patted the walrus's back with a creaking sound like a door in an empty house. There, he said. "Whatever is the problem, old chap?" "The walrus," he sniffed. "I'm hungry," he wailed. "Terribly hungry." "And it's simply too late for tea." The carpenter, he stroked his chin. His eyes, small and beady, glanced towards the sea. "Oysters," he declared. "Oysters are what we need." They found them huddled on a rock, the oysters all pearly and unsuspecting. The walrus, he mopped his brow with a handkerchief the size of a sail. "Such a long walk," he sighed. "Wouldn't you agree, my dear oysters?" The oysters. They looked at each other, confused. The sun, it still shone brightly. The carpenter, he smiled, a smile that didn't quite reach his eyes. "A walk?" he said. "Why, yes, a walk is just what you need." "A pleasant stroll with us by the sea. The oysters," they whispered amongst themselves. The sun, it winked. "The walrus," he offered his arm, his handkerchief drooping strategically to the ground. They walked and they talked. The walrus, he told tales of woe and sorrow. The carpenter, he spoke of cabbages and kings. The oysters, they listened, captivated by the strange pair. "And what of you?" asked the walrus, dabbing at his eyes. "What brings you out at this unusual hour?" The eldest oyster, he cleared his throat, a sound like a pearl rolling on velvet. "The moon, sir," he said. "We came to admire the moon." The walrus and the carpenter, they exchanged a look that spoke volumes, though no words were uttered. The oysters, they shivered, though the sand was warm. They reached a clearing. A table appeared as if by magic, or perhaps it had been there all along. The sun, it cast long dancing shadows. The carpenter, he produced plates and silverware. The walrus, he stopped crying. "A feast," declared the walrus, rubbing his flippers together. "A midnight feast! How delightful! The oysters!" They looked around nervously. The table, it seemed to loom large. The silverware, it gleamed. The carpenter, he sharpened his knife. The sound whistling through the air. "Now then," said the carpenter, his voice smooth as silk. "Who's ready for supper?" And so, under the watchful gaze of the moon that wasn't there, the oysters were eaten, every last one. The walrus, he slurped and guzzled, his tears forgotten. The carpenter, he dined with a chilling politeness. The sun, it finally set, painting the sky in hues of guilt and fire. The waves crashed against the shore, a mournful symphony, and on the wind carried on the salty air a single chilling sound could be heard. The click of the carpenter's toolbox closing shut. The moon, it peeked out from behind a cloud, illuminating the empty plates and the satisfied smiles of the walrus and the carpenter.